Saturday mornings were the weekend highlight. Kids rose early, cereal in hand, to catch the first cartoon. In the quiet, glowing screen light, a few hours of pure escapism began. These shows defined childhood weekends and remain unforgettable. The real Ghostbusters felt like the perfect mix of spooky and funny for a Saturday morning. It took the idea of ghosts and made them safe enough for kids while still feeling exciting. The characters were loud, weird, and memorable, and the world was filled with slime, gadgets, and strange creatures hiding in everyday places. Kids loved the proton packs, the ghost traps, and especially Slimer, who turned chaos into comedy. Every episode felt like an adventure that could happen in your own city if you were brave enough. The theme song alone could wake up an entire house. It made you feel like something important was about to happen. Watching it with cereal in hand felt like being part of the team. It balanced humor and light scares in a way few cartoons could, and just when you thought nothing could top chasing ghosts before noon, the next cartoon took us on treasure hunts filled with gold, danger, and family drama. DuckTales turned Saturday mornings into epic adventures. Each episode felt like a mini-movie filled with ancient temples, lost cities, and piles of treasure. Scrooge McDuck was not just rich, he was clever, fearless, and always one step ahead. Kids loved the mix of action and humor, especially watching Huey, Dewey, and Louie get into trouble and find their way out. The villains were sneaky, the locations were exciting, and the stakes always felt high. DuckTales made exploration feel magical. It encouraged curiosity and imagination. You never knew where the story would take you next. The theme song was pure energy and instantly set the mood for adventure. It was the kind of show that made you want to grab a map and start exploring your own backyard. But while DuckTales focused on treasure and travel, the next cartoon shrank the heroes down and proved that even the smallest characters could save the day. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers showed that heroes did not have to be big or strong, they just had to be clever. The show turned two classic characters into detectives who solved mysteries in a world built from everyday objects. A paperclip could become a ladder and a matchbox could be a building. Kids loved seeing familiar spaces transformed into something new. Gadget was the inventor everyone admired. Monterey Jack brought humor and bravery, and Zipper proved that even the quietest character could be important. The stories were smart and fast-paced, making kids feel like they were solving puzzles along with the team. It was a show about teamwork and creativity. Every episode reminded kids that brains could beat brawn. The theme song was catchy and adventurous, pulling you in right away. And once you were hooked on clever heroes, the next cartoon brought in one clumsy but unforgettable hero who never failed to make kids laugh. Inspector Gadget was pure chaos in the best way. He was a walking collection of mistakes, gadgets, and confusion. Every episode followed the same formula, yet it never got old. Gadget thought he was in control, while Penny and Brain secretly saved the day behind the scenes. Kids loved being in on the secret. Watching the villains fail because of Gadget's accidents made everything funnier. The gadgets were ridiculous and endless, from helicopter hats to extendable arms. The show was colorful, loud, and packed with slapstick humor. The theme song was impossible to forget and instantly signaled fun. Inspector Gadget made kids laugh without trying too hard. It did not need complex stories. It relied on timing, silliness, and repetition. And just when you thought nothing could be more absurd, the next cartoon took kids into a fantasy world where danger was real, and returning home was the ultimate goal. Dungeons & Dragons was darker and more serious than most Saturday morning cartoons. It dropped a group of kids into a fantasy world filled with monsters, magic, and danger. Each character had a special role and weapon, making teamwork essential. The stories felt emotional because the goal was always the same: find a way home. Kids connected with the fear, hope, and bravery of the characters. The Dungeon Master guided them with riddles instead of answers, making every episode feel mysterious. The villains were genuinely scary, and the stakes felt high. This cartoon trusted kids to handle complex stories and moral choices. It felt different from everything else on television. And after spending time in such a dangerous fantasy world, the next cartoon brought things back to a brighter, softer tone filled with charm, humor, and magical creatures. The Smurfs brought a gentle kind of magic to Saturday mornings. The blue characters lived in a hidden village where teamwork and friendship mattered more than strength. Every Smurf had a personality that kids could instantly recognize, from brainy to clumsy to Papa Smurf. The stories were simple but comforting, usually focused on solving problems together while avoiding Gargamel and his sneaky cat. Kids loved imagining what it would be like to live in mushroom houses and have a whole community that always looked out for one another. The tone was calm and playful, making it perfect for early mornings. The theme song felt cheerful and welcoming, almost like an invitation into their world. Watching the Smurfs felt safe and familiar, like visiting old friends every weekend. And once you left that tiny blue village, the next cartoon bounced into view with medieval adventure and a whole lot of energy. The adventures of the gummy bears felt like discovering a secret world hidden just out of sight. These characters lived in a medieval fantasy setting filled with castles, knights, and magic. Kids were fascinated by gummy berry juice, which gave the bears the ability to bounce high into the air. The animation was colorful and smooth, making every jump feel exciting. Each character brought something unique to the group, from bravery to wisdom to pure enthusiasm. The stories mixed humor with real danger, giving the show emotional weight without ever feeling too serious. It made fantasy approachable and fun. The theme song was one of the most memorable of the era and instantly raised excitement levels. Gummy bears made kids want to explore forests and imagine secret societies living nearby. And just when fantasy felt at its peak, the next cartoon took familiar characters and turned them into children just like the audience watching. Muppet Babies was creativity turned into pure imagination. The show reimagined beloved characters as toddlers living in a nursery where anything was possible. Everyday objects became entire worlds, and the stories were powered by pretend play. Kids related to the way the characters imagined adventures from simple toys and furniture. It felt like how children actually played, turning a couch into a mountain or a box into a spaceship. The show encouraged imagination and creativity without talking down to its audience. The animation style felt soft and inviting, perfect for the early hours of the day. Muppet Babies also introduced kids to classic movies and ideas through parody, often without them realizing it. It made learning feel effortless, and after spending time in the nursery, the next cartoon exploded with wild animation and unpredictable humor. The New Adventures of Mighty Mouse pushed boundaries in ways few Saturday morning cartoons dared to try. The animation was fast, exaggerated, and sometimes surreal. Mighty Mouse himself was a classic hero, but the show often leaned into absurd humor and unexpected twists. Kids never quite knew what was coming next, which made it exciting. The stories could be silly one moment and strangely clever the next. It felt different from everything else on television, almost rebellious. The theme song was bold and dramatic, making the hero feel larger than life. This cartoon trusted kids to keep up with its rapid pace and strange jokes. It stood out as something unique in the lineup, and after that burst of chaotic energy, the next cartoon connected directly to something kids already loved playing at home. Captain N the Game Master was a dream come true for kids who loved video games. The show brought classic game characters together into one animated universe. A regular teenager was pulled into a digital world and suddenly became the hero. Kids loved recognizing familiar faces and imagining what it would be like to live inside a video game. The stories were adventurous and fun, filled with action and teamwork. It made gaming feel epic and important. Watching Captain N felt like the future of entertainment at the time. It blended two worlds kids already loved, cartoons and video games. And as technology met imagination, the next cartoon cranked up the style, music, and drama in a way that no one could ignore. Jem and the Holograms brought music, drama, and style to Saturday mornings in a way no other cartoon dared to try. It was not just about action or jokes. It was about fame, friendship, and identity. Jem lived a double life, balancing music stardom with everyday responsibilities, and that made the show feel surprisingly grown up. Kids loved the flashy concerts, colorful outfits, and catchy songs that felt like real pop hits. The villains were dramatic, the conflicts felt emotional, and every episode ended with a lesson that did not feel forced. Gem proved that cartoons could be glamorous and meaningful at the same time. It opened the door for storytelling that went beyond simple adventures. And just when the music faded, the next cartoon dove underwater and showed that even the ocean could have its own Saturday morning stars. The Snorks felt familiar and strange at the same time. They lived underwater in a bright, colorful world filled with bubbles, coral cities, and quirky inventions. Kids loved the snorkels on their heads that lit up when they talked, making every conversation feel playful. The show focused on friendship, problem-solving, and everyday adventures beneath the sea. It had a calm tone that made it perfect for weekend mornings. The characters were easy to recognize, each with their own personality and role in the community. The underwater setting sparked imagination and made kids wonder what hidden worlds might exist just beyond sight. Watching the Snorks felt relaxing, like floating through a dream. And as the ocean faded away, the next cartoon brought gothic humor and spooky laughs that were unlike anything else on television. Count Duckula mixed horror themes with comedy in a way that felt clever and fresh. The main character was a vampire duck who wanted nothing to do with being scary. Instead of blood, he preferred vegetables, and that alone made kids laugh. The show was filled with dark castles, strange inventions, and fast-talking humor. It trusted kids to understand sarcasm and irony, which made it feel smart. The animation style was bold and expressive, and the jokes came quickly. Count Duckula stood out because it did not follow the usual rules. It took spooky ideas and turned them upside down. Kids who loved monsters but also loved comedy found something special here. And after laughing through haunted halls, the next cartoon blasted into space and showed what high school might look like on another planet. Galaxy High was high school taken to an extreme level. It followed human students attending an intergalactic school filled with aliens, advanced technology, and strange customs. Kids loved the idea of being the odd ones out, in a place where everything was unfamiliar. The show blended teen comedy with science fiction, creating stories about fitting in and finding confidence. Each episode felt imaginative and unpredictable. The alien characters were creative and funny, and the setting allowed for endless possibilities. Galaxy High captured the awkwardness of growing up in a way kids understood, even through a science fiction lens. It felt modern and inventive, and once school ended in space, the next cartoon zoomed in closer to home, showing that adventure could exist right inside your own walls. The Littles focused on a hidden world that might exist in every house. Tiny people lived inside the walls, using everyday objects in clever ways to survive. Kids loved imagining that small adventures were happening just out of sight. The show emphasized teamwork, kindness, and problem-solving. It made children look at their homes differently, wondering what could be hiding behind baseboards or inside cupboards. The Littles felt gentle and imaginative, perfect for winding down a busy morning of cartoons. It showed that you did not need epic battles or big villains to tell meaningful stories, and with that sense of quiet wonder, the next cartoon roared in with metallic heroes and space-age action that turned the volume all the way up. Silverhawks took everything kids loved about space adventures and turned it into something shiny and unforgettable. The characters were part metal, part hero, soaring through space with jet wings and glowing armor. Each member of the team had a unique power and personality, which made every episode feel like a showcase of teamwork. The villains were dramatic and larger than life, giving the show a sense of high stakes that felt intense for a Saturday morning. Kids were drawn to the futuristic designs, the laser battles, and the idea that heroes could exist beyond Earth. The theme song was powerful and dramatic, making it feel like something epic was about to unfold. Silverhawks made space feel dangerous, exciting, and heroic all at once. It was the kind of show that made kids imagine flying through the sky with mechanical wings. And just when the action felt as intense as possible, the next cartoon softened things up with imagination, color, and playful creativity. The Wuzzles were a burst of pure imagination that felt perfectly suited for young viewers. Each character was a mix of two animals, creating combinations that were silly, cute, and instantly memorable. Kids loved guessing which animals made up each Wuzzle and imagining new ones of their own. The world they lived in was bright, bouncy, and full of energy. Stories focused on friendship, curiosity, and problem-solving in a gentle way. The animation style was soft and cheerful, making the show feel welcoming. The Wuzzles encouraged creativity and imagination without needing action or danger. It was the kind of cartoon that made kids smile without even realizing why. Watching it felt like stepping into a picture book that had come to life. And after that gentle burst of creativity, the next show flipped the idea of a cartoon completely upside down. Pee-wee's Playhouse was unlike anything else on Saturday morning television. It was loud, strange, colorful, and wonderfully unpredictable. Every episode felt like a celebration of silliness and creativity. Talking furniture, dancing objects, and strange characters filled the screen with non-stop surprises. Kids never knew what was coming next, and that was the magic. The show did not follow normal rules. It encouraged imagination, curiosity, and being proud of being different. Pee-wee spoke directly to the audience, making kids feel included in the fun. It was chaotic but comforting at the same time. Parents sometimes did not understand it, but kids absolutely did. Pee-wee's Playhouse proved that cartoons could be weird and still be lovable. And after that whirlwind of color and noise, the next cartoon brought things back to action with a futuristic family of heroes. Bionic 6 centered on a family that worked together as a team of superheroes enhanced by advanced technology. Each member had a unique power, and their strength came from cooperation and trust. Kids liked seeing a family fight villains together, mixing everyday relationships with superhero action. The animation style felt bold and futuristic, and the villains were dramatic and memorable. The show balanced action with lessons about responsibility and teamwork. It made the idea of family feel powerful and exciting. Bionic 6 showed that heroes did not have to work alone. They could rely on each other. The high-tech suits and dramatic battles captured the imagination of kids who loved futuristic stories. And as technology and heroism filled the screen, the next cartoon brought something completely unexpected into the mix. Denver, the Last Dinosaur, was fun, musical, and full of heart. The idea of a dinosaur living in modern times instantly captured attention. Denver was friendly, cool, and always ready for adventure. Kids loved watching him skateboard, hang out with friends, and try to fit into a world that did not quite understand him. The show mixed humor with moments of warmth, making Denver feel like a real friend. The theme song was upbeat and impossible to forget. It gave the cartoon a relaxed, fun tone that made it perfect for weekend mornings. Denver reminded kids that being different could be something special, and as the dinosaur adventures wrapped up, the next cartoon brought things back to teamwork and friendship with a group that believed getting along mattered more than anything else. The Get Along Gang felt like a warm hug at the end of a busy Saturday morning lineup. The show centered on a group of animal friends who lived in a small town where kindness and cooperation mattered most. Each character had a distinct personality, and the stories often focused on misunderstandings that were solved through talking things out. Kids connected with the simple lessons because they reflected real friendships and everyday problems. The animation was bright and inviting, and the tone was gentle without being boring. Watching the Get Along Gang made children feel calm and understood. It was the kind of cartoon parents did not mind hearing in the background because it carried positive messages. It reminded kids that getting along was not always easy, but it was always worth trying. And just when things felt peaceful and grounded, the next cartoon took a sharp turn into the future with laser battles, justice, and a space-age Western twist. Bravestar blended science fiction and Western themes into something bold and unforgettable. Set on a distant planet, the show followed a lawman who fought for justice using mystical animal powers. Kids were drawn to the unique setting where futuristic technology mixed with old frontier values. The stories were more serious than many cartoons, often touching on responsibility, loss, and doing what is right. Brave Star trusted its audience to handle deeper themes while still delivering action and adventure. The characters felt strong and memorable, from allies to villains. The animation had a dramatic style that made every episode feel important. Watching Brave Star made kids feel like they were part of something larger than themselves. And after riding through a futuristic frontier, the next cartoon brought magic, knights, and glowing power into the mix. Visionary's Knights of the Magical Light was pure fantasy mixed with cutting-edge ideas. The heroes and villains used magical totems that granted special powers, and the battle between them felt epic. Kids loved the combination of medieval armor and glowing holographic effects. Each character had a unique ability, making every confrontation exciting. The tone was serious, and the stakes felt high. Visionaries treated its world like a living myth, full of prophecy and destiny. The toys even featured holograms, which made the show feel futuristic and mysterious. Watching it felt like stepping into a legend that unfolded week by week. And just when magic and myth reached their peak, the next cartoon shifted gears into something strange, funny, and completely unforgettable. Turbo Teen was one of the strangest concepts to ever appear on Saturday morning television. It followed a teenager who could turn into a sports car when exposed to heat. Kids were fascinated by how absurd and fun the idea was. The transformation scenes were memorable, and the show leaned fully into its strange premise. It mixed teen adventure with slapstick humor in a way that felt bold. Turbo Teen did not take itself too seriously, and that was part of its charm. It felt like the kind of idea kids might come up with themselves. Watching it made you wonder what other wild ideas cartoons could explore. And after that burst of oddball creativity, the next cartoon closed out the lineup with music, mischief, and voices no one could forget. Alvin and the Chipmunks filled Saturday mornings with high-pitched voices and non-stop energy. The trio got into trouble wherever they went, often through their own enthusiasm and curiosity. Kids loved the fast-paced humor and musical numbers that made each episode feel lively. The songs were catchy and fun, and the characters felt like chaotic friends you could not help but enjoy. Dave tried to keep them in line, but the Chipmunks always found a way to turn everyday situations into adventures. The show balanced comedy with heart, reminding kids that family did not have to be perfect to be loving. It was loud, silly, and full of personality. And with that burst of music and laughter, the era of Saturday morning cartoons came to a close, leaving behind memories that still echo decades later. Pound Puppies brought a gentle, emotional touch to Saturday mornings that stayed with kids long after the episode ended. The cartoon focused on a group of lovable dogs who lived in a shelter and worked together to help puppies find homes. Kids connected deeply with the idea of helping animals and making sure no one felt alone. The stories were full of warmth, teamwork, and small acts of kindness that felt important. Each puppy had a unique personality, making it easy to pick a favorite. The tone was soft and comforting, yet the adventures still felt meaningful. Watching Pound Puppies made children feel empathy and responsibility in a way few cartoons attempted. It showed that caring for others was its own kind of heroism. And once those gentle stories wrapped up, the next cartoon took kids into the forest for an environmental adventure with a surprisingly serious message. The raccoons stood out because it blended humor with real-world themes. Set in a peaceful forest community, the show followed animal characters trying to protect their home from greed and destruction. Kids loved the laid-back personalities, especially the easygoing heroes and the comically selfish villain. The animation style was calm and inviting, and the music had a relaxed feel that matched the tone. The show quietly introduced ideas about nature, responsibility, and standing up for what matters. It did not talk down to kids. It trusted them to understand fairness and consequences. Watching the raccoons felt thoughtful and different from louder action cartoons. It encouraged reflection without losing charm. And as the forest faded away, the next cartoon brought a familiar tough guy face into animated form. Mr. T arrived on Saturday mornings as an animated version of a larger-than-life personality. The show featured a team of gymnasts who traveled around solving problems and helping people, guided by Mr. T himself. Kids recognized the voice instantly and loved the idea of a strong mentor figure who stood for discipline and kindness. The stories focused on teamwork, respect, and standing up to bullies. Mr. T often ended episodes with direct lessons, speaking clearly about right and wrong. It felt serious but encouraging. The action was grounded, and the messages were easy to understand. For many kids, this cartoon felt motivational, like being coached through life challenges. And after that burst of real-world inspiration, the next cartoon returned to fantasy, friendship, and bright emotional storytelling. The Care Bears turned emotions into superpowers. Each bear represented a feeling or value, and together they worked to spread kindness and stop negativity. Kids loved the bright colors, heart symbols, and soft designs that made the characters feel comforting. The stories focused on sharing, understanding feelings, and helping others grow. It was gentle, but never dull. Children related to the emotional lessons because they mirrored real experiences like jealousy, fear, and friendship. The Care Bear stare became a legendary moment that kids waited for in every episode. Watching the show felt reassuring, like being reminded that kindness mattered. And as rainbows and clouds drifted away, the final cartoon on this list brought classic characters and timeless energy back into the spotlight. The Care Bears were not the end of the era, because Alvin and the Chipmunks closed out many Saturday mornings with sound, chaos, and laughter. Their high-pitched voices, musical numbers, and constant mischief made every episode feel energetic. Kids laughed at their antics and sang along to their songs. The show captured sibling rivalry, friendship, and learning from mistakes in a fun way. Dave tried to keep order, but the Chipmunks always found trouble. It was loud, silly, and unforgettable. With that final burst of music and humor, Saturday morning cartoons came to an end, leaving behind memories that still live in our hearts decades later. Saturday morning cartoons were more than just television shows. They were a weekly ritual that brought imagination, laughter, and adventure into our homes. If one of these cartoons brought back a memory for you, share it in the comments. Then like the video and subscribe so we can keep reliving the weekends that made childhood feel magical.